Right after the first tip, and he says, that was 128 beats a minute. And he had this metronome, this digital metronome in his hand. And I knew, looking down at I started it out, this was 124 I was calling it. He said, oh, you're using square view. I said, yes, I do use square view. He says, yes, square view tends to run about 4 beats fast. The first thing I said to him, are you a caller? He says, no, I just love this stuff though. And he's got this. So I want you to know that what's on your computer might not necessarily be in actuality what's happening out there. What I think is really critical for you to do, and I'm going to stress this just off the top, is that watch the dancers' feet. They're going to tell you exactly that your tempo is too fast or too slow. Watch them. If somebody's going like this to try to catch up, or you got dancers that are just stepping every other step because it's too hard to keep up with what you're doing, you're just calling too fast. Your tempo is too fast. It doesn't make it a better caller. It just makes the dance experience a lot lower for your audience out there, and people are walking out the door before the end of the dance. So varying your tempo a little bit is fine, but running it up, unless you're calling hot hash or some other kind of thing, I think you need to watch those dancers' feet. They're going to tell you. And if you're, a lot of times, there's a lot of us, particularly when it's warmer out there, watch the glow in their forehead. When their forehead starts glowing away and they're beginning to glow or perspire, in the case of some of us, cut out the pattern. Don't keep going and going and going and going. So I think with that, I'm going to pass it on to John and let John start this afternoon session.
Thank you, Mike. I'm going to follow in just for a moment on what Mike had to say. A couple of other things you want to watch for on that, aside from things like your floor surface, what are we dancing on, carpet, tile, whatever, makes a difference too. Your age group can make a difference on that as well. If I'm calling teens, if I'm calling the seniors, whatever. I was very last about that. Well, so many of them are all seniors. Well, there's a difference. And you also, sometimes you have a group, maybe you have some semi-handy capable people in the room, walking wounded I talk about, they've come back from surgery or whatever. I might make it a point to adjust my tempo a little bit for them if necessary. But also, this thing about, Mike mentioned about metronome, no, it's not digital, but you've been going a long time. You may not even be able to assign a number to it, but you know that it feels right. You know that it's right for the floor. Also, you mentioned about people trying to catch up or taking the long steps, whatever. In addition to the idea that maybe it's not your tempo, maybe you let the squares get too big. We tend to forget to remind dancers about that. Sadly, as we have bigger rooms and smaller numbers, it can happen. So there's elements that play into this, but smooth dancing to me and body flow that we're going to talk about here, they are so vital. I want to get a pin printed up that says, don't stop, go. I am so sick and tired of watching callers present to dancers as stop and go, stop and go. For one thing, as a dancer, it's exhausting compared to dancing smooth flowing material, one call following the other. Right? And you need to be on top of your game to do that. You need to know where you're headed to do that. And quite frankly, it's pointless to me to do the stop and go business. If you're calling too hard and you have to keep stopping, then you're calling too hard for the floor. And I'm talking regardless of what it said on the door walking in, whether it was plus or plus TV or mainstream, irregardless. There's something wrong. They're breaking down. And it could well be the tempo, they're just not prepared for the choreography. So it's that blend of the choreography that you choose along with the flow. If I'm looking for a flat out straight, what I call a flow tip, I want them all to flow. But if I want it to be a special experience to where the dancers are done, they come up to me at the end of the tip, and I often save it for the last tip of the night, if the floor is deserving. If they've proven themselves to be able to dance that way, rather than dance continuous all night long, non-stop. Most of our floors won't do it anymore. They can't. But bottom line is that people come to me at the end of the dance and say, wow, that really made me feel like a dancer. And they emphasize that word, dancer. And I shoot for that all the time because it makes such a difference to their experience. And they can't wait to get more of it. And that keeps people coming back. But it makes you more successful. And some of the elements that both Jerry and I and what's his name down the end here? Oh yeah, Mike, are going to be talking about are elements that make up for that. Choosing music that promotes dancing to rhythm. How many people were in here for the last session in this room? Anybody? Okay, this will follow on just a little bit what you heard in there. But I believe, number one, to do your best calling, the music that you select needs to speak to you personally. It needs to be music that you feel not only just good about, but somebody else may use a piece of music and you love that piece of music. You might love it, but you may not be able to fit to it. But the ones that really strike you right, that you can relate to and call well to, that's where you're going to get your best combinations for flow. I think that makes a big difference, choosing that music and the ability to dance to the rhythm. When I put on a piece of music and I look around the room, even if it's that piece of music I put on when I'm getting the people squared up, and I start watching, there's some people still sitting on the side, I watch, are they tamping their foot yet? Are they aware? Did they become physically aware of what's going on? Now, I agree, you have to also, it's good to vary your music during the evening, not only by genre necessarily, but by rhythm. We don't have a lot of material in like 6/8 rhythms, but the other more common rhythm, 2/4 and so on, that allows us to get in and out of our pattern quickly. Those things are good to have to the program, but it has to dance. And you know, folks, this applies to singing calls too. There are some singing calls that will be usable, and they're quite often very familiar singing calls. There was a version of Dandy Boy years ago that came out. And it was a great piece of music, but it didn't dance for the hoot. You know, it was not good to dance to. Now, the caller using it happened to be able to sell anything. I mean, Ice Cream Eskimos, you know, he was a tremendous talent. He had tremendous styling abilities. He was an exciting caller, and he could make that work. But he's certainly by far the exception. And I wouldn't want to dance to things that don't dance all night long. And you need to call to the music. I know a few callers out there that they have their own world. You know, they're running at 132, sometimes 138. Doesn't matter, because they don't call to the music. So you have to choose as a dancer, am I going to dance to the music or am I going to dance to the caller? And that's exhausting also. That's really tiring, you know. I'm wondering what I've written here. Thank you. And Jerry wrote a little note to me about background noise that can interfere with things. Is that what you're saying? No. Oh, the background music was background noise, I see. In that example, he's right, it is. It is irrelevant to what was being called. I know one caller uses that approach, but to him, and he stops after almost every call. But sometimes the answer is needed, sometimes they don't. That's his sense, but he believes it gives, I think, I don't know this, but I believe he thinks that it ends a sense of movement to the room, to the floor, a sense of urgency, if not at least movement, by having it there without regard to the tempo. And I won't do many personal stories today, I don't want to take the time for it, but the best one I know of that is this caller had a mentor. Was mentoring another caller who I happened to have a private lunch with one day, and we were talking about it, and he was talking about his calling, and he was struggling a bit, his dancers were not handling it well. And I asked him, what are your tempos? And he quoted his mentor. He was calling tempos the same way his mentor was. And I said, I've heard you call a little bit. You got a nice sound, your material's fine. Just go back in and back your music off, you know, to about 124, 126. That's extreme. I said, yes, it is. But watch the smoothness in the floor. The dancers will smooth right out for you, and the calls you're calling, they're going to be able to do, I suspect, because you're not calling tricky stuff. And I think you're going to be able to be successful with that. Go back and try it, let me know. Don't tell your mentor about this conversation. Because I didn't want to get a phone call from the mentor being upset with me that he didn't think I was doing right. But my answer would have been, I'm just trying to do what I think might help this guy, because he's deserving of some help. I did later find out he did make the adjustment, and it made a big difference in the success of the dancers. And many times that's all it takes. Sometimes it's just 2 beats. Just some 2 to 4 beats can make a big, big difference. Tempo, comfortable number of beats, and that's what we're talking about. What's comfortable in number of beats that they're dancing, and that internal metronome really does exist. I mean, you go over to the record vendor and drop a piece of music on, and right away, you know, you're going to react to the tempo and think about it. There's also some pieces of music that you hear that you think are okay, but there's something wrong. Try slowing them down. Sometimes that piece of music you use is just all you need to slow it down. Particularly, of course, when we're talking about non-standard music, things from the radio, the CDs, whatever, that you're using. Sometimes the only way to use them effectively is by slowing them down, or in some of the cases of the classical music type, by speeding them up. Just depends on the piece you have, but pay attention to that. Being aware of the musical phrase. Now, does everybody know what I mean by musical phrase? There's going to be a specific place as you hear the music where you're going to know, number one, to put your foot, but also when to speak. Now, there's a timing sense of whether you deliver the command to call on the first or fifth beat of the music, and then by doing so, the dancers actually take the first beat, if you take the fifth. Well, I can't count that out. I've tried. There was a caller in the East named, I can't remember Dick's name, but he was well known in the area today, and he was an absolute fanatic about this approach to music. And he played guitar when he called and so on. Leisure, thank you so much. And they had asked me to come in and help when they were doing the timing chart for advance. They didn't have an advanced caller available for me, so I came in to do that. And they were trying to time out a caller named Cast the Shadow. And I said, okay folks, here's what I'm going to do to give you a heads up what's coming. I'm going to call a swing two, boys run, couples circulate, cast a shadow. So when you hear me say couples circulate, right, the next call is going to be the cast a shadow, so you know when to watch them pick up their feet and start counting beats. And I would do that, and Dick was like, in the room, no, you got to do it this way. And I tried, I couldn't accomplish what he wanted me to effect. And I said, I don't know, what you really want from me, I've tried. Well, Jim Mayo coming back in the room and had been watching, and Jim knew my calling. And Jim hollered back, Dick, just leave him alone and let him call. It'll be fine. And so Dick kind of backed off. But before that, he said, well, let me one more try. So we're doing the one more try, and he's counting out beats. I'm watching the dancers, listening to the music. And all of a sudden behind me he says, now! I just turned around and looked at him, and this isn't going to work. So they left me alone, and we started going. And we used it the way I told them to when to pick up their feet and so on. The timing came out just fine. I called several sequences that way. The dancers were decent dancers. They were moving through the call nicely. The tempo was smooth. It was comfortable. And when it was all over, they got their counts and stuff. But when it was over, Dick came to me and he said, I don't understand how you can do that. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, number one, I've never seen a dance called smoothly, without stop and go, etc., for starters. But not only do you do that, but you're always exactly in the right place for people to put their foot down. How do you do that? And I told her, I said, all I can tell you, Dick, is that I listen and feel the music, and I watch the dancers. And that works for me. Trying to count 1, 2, 3, and after a while, if you do the counting approach, you will then come to the point where you sense it. So perhaps I'm a natural at that, I don't know. But that approach didn't work. The musical phrase, being able to take the musical phrase and know when to step off on the beat of the music, you need to be able to deliver the command to the dancer so they can step off. Now, we did an experiment last year here trying to determine how important it was to do that. And Jim Mayo's a big fan of that approach also, but he came away with it. He was on the panel. He came and said, ultimately it seems that it doesn't make that much difference in the overall dance experience, which was a surprise to some of the long-time callers. But being on the musical phrase for the dancer, it feels right to the dancer. It's right where they put their foot down, feels good, and lets them move. So that's why I speak on that. One of the things we don't talk about in here, but is that I'll often ask dancers, or I'll teach dancers, I'll ask callers, do you know the difference between walking and dancing? Anybody offer an answer? Wade? Sure. When you're walking, your heel hits first. When you're dancing, your toes hit the floor first. And that smooths things out in your body at angle language. Gotta get this guy a poster or something to carry with him.
Mike is doing this because that's the way Bob Osgood taught people to dance. And watch again what he's doing. I don't mean to
No,
interrupt.
please, please, please.
But I watched Bob do this with Mike as a demo.
When you're walking, your posture's slightly back, your heel hits first. You even have a different gait, but you're upright and you're kind of leaning back.
Different gait.
Yeah. Weights, yeah. When you're dancing, you're slightly leaning forward, and I'd invite you to show your dancers that when you're teaching your new dancers, it's a slight forward lean. You're on the balls of your feet, and then your toe hits. It's a different sort of posture. You're able to move and execute the dance a little bit better, and you'd be a lot less tired at the end of the evening than if you're leaning back and strutting through the dance like this.
Well, do that first one again, Mike, and we'll comment. I'm telling you, watch his shoulders. Watch what's happening as he's rotating his body that way. Now turn around and give us the other version with your toe going first. Things smooth out.
This one he's in the movie house, the other one he's walking down Hollywood and Vine.
Gotta say,
Grew up in LA.
Oh my. This delivery of calls to that musical phrase that we were just talking about, where your technique is supposed to deliver that command to the dancer stepping on the downbeat of the music as opposed to trying to step on the upbeat. Now, we all have dancers that can't find this. I mean, I have a fellow, he's a good dancer. He knows where to go. He knows where he needs to be all the time. He's not rough. He's not abusive. He's in the square. And if he ever took a step to the music, it'd be by accident. I mean, he doesn't saunter. He just kind of moves through the square and somehow gets there. But at least he doesn't disrupt anybody else because he's where he needs to be when he needs to be there. So that part's okay. But I mean, it's just amazing. I don't know how you can't step to the beat of the music. I mean, I don't understand, you know, and I do Chinese callers are sure, well, show us how to call off the beat of the music. I can't demonstrate that. I just can't. I just try, and I can't do that. Matching your music and your choreography, the phrase here on the sheet is wind in your face or workshop. Of course, when we're workshopping, there's going to be more stop and go. We're stopping to teach or to clean up a point that we see, okay, some of us are having a problem with. That's going to happen. But I always make sure the music that I have on in that situation is more or less background music. It's pleasant. It's not intrusive to what I'm trying to teach. I'm not trying to, when I'm workshopping, I'm not trying to lock the dancer into the feel of the dance. I'm workshopping to get them to understand how the physical science of choreography works. Then I'm going to add the art in. I always believe there's both the science and the art in what we do. And we'll add the artistic part in when we're getting them to actually move with the music. And we're actually getting to feel it and excited and use the music in such a way that it adds to that. For example, when we have a piece of music that either has a key change, which you don't do a lot of in pattern, but when you have a key change or an elemental point in the music where it raises even the music of the volume by nature changes, goes up. That's where you want to hit your element left. That's where you want to hit your right and left grand. And it gives the dancers a real lift, you know. And if you're capable of calling on the upbeat for any length of time, that's a great place to put it in. I've tried. I'm not a natural at calling on the upbeat, but that adds an element of excitement to the floor as well. But you're matching choreography there to your music. Now, I have certain calls that I reserve for flow tips, and I made a comment before about if they deserve it. You know, I want them to deserve it. I'll spend all night long developing. The first thing I want to do is develop their trust, and I do that through the body flow. You develop trust through the body flow, the dancers will get better and better. They'll be more and more successful. They trust you more. So as a result, because I do believe the body flow will make them more successful at every instance. Once I've got that, and I see the people down, they come to trust me. My home clubs, it's automatic. They've learned you. They know to trust you. And in fact, if you call something that is reverse body flow by a mistake, wrong words came out of your mouth, you know, most of the floor of the dancers that be regularly are going to do what should have been called. They're going to do the reverse flutter wheel, not the flutter wheel that I asked for, because they know just by feel that's what needs to be there. The people that are listening to it, oddly enough, the fellow who doesn't dance to the music, he's the first one to catch it, you know, and feel like he's going to fall on his face, you know, but he'll try to make it work, you know. So you look at that sort of thing when you're doing this. Workshopping, I want the music to be unintrusive, but I want it to be there with a nice rhythm in the background. If I need to stop periodically, as you do when we're teaching something new or workshopping a bump in the road, that's fine. But when I'm going for an all-out, straight-out float tip, I want wind in their face. I want them excited about moving. Number one, first thing, I lower the degree of difficulty when I'm calling. And I don't care what the program is. I don't care if it's C2 or if it's mainstream. I reduce the degree of difficulty. It's all about the dance. It's not all about the choreography. The choreography is not the do-all, be-all of square dancing, and even though I call challenge, I say that to you, and I believe that, and I call the same way as much as possible at C1 and C2. It's not all puzzles at those levels. For many callers it is. It's nothing but puzzle. I like a combination. That's what they're looking for. But when I want the dancers to be excited and feeling really good about themselves and about what they're doing, I will lower the degree of difficulty. I'll put on a piece of music that they can't help but dance smoothly to. Sometimes the music can be hot. It can be, you can really be cooking on a hot piece of music that way. Sometimes it's not. The Abba Super Trooper, which has voices in it, but they are higher enough pitch that they don't intrude people to not being able to understand your voice versus theirs. And I call that right off the CD.
That's a little better.
I make a minor tempo adjustment, and I call to it right off the CD, and it's smooth. I mean, it is just like glass. And that's what I want it to be. That's one that I reserve. And it's a showmanship thing, folks. There are times when I will tell that to the dancers. I know I'm going to use it. I'll say, folks, I want to tell you something. I've been watching you all night. I really enjoyed calling with you. You're good dancers. I want to share this with you because you've earned it. And I always get a lot of response from that. People applaud that, and I mean it genuinely. Because if I don't think it's going to happen, I don't put it on. But pure outflow, one thing to another, to another, to another. Yeah, there are resolves in there, but not as many as there would be if I have a floor that's struggling. When they're struggling, I want to close off, get out, start fresh. So those are the things that I think are most valuable. That when your face that we're talking about, as much continuous motion as possible, all good flow without being overflow. If you're a caller that's highly sensitive to flow, your danger is overflow. For the rest of us, the danger would be reverse flow. One of the reasons new callers always end up doing the wrong one, the boys run and bend the line, is because as callers, we all call boys run and bend the line way too much, and it's geared into their brain, and so they're not sure what to call next, and so it's boys run and bend the line. Invariably, of course, the boy was on the end, and he did a run, and the bend is an absolute reverse body flow killer, you need to see that. And I'll tell you one story on myself, and then I'm going to pass off to Jerry here, but the way I became aware of body flow, and this is a particularly good story based on where we are geographically in the country, because the people here were going to know what I'm talking about when it's over. I've been calling for about 5-6 years maybe, and I'm calling along. It's a local festival, but we had good turnout. People traveled, come to it, and it was one of the local callers. Plus, we had a feature caller who happened to be Bob Fisk that year. And so I'm calling along, nice big crowd, and I called my tip, and I was very satisfied with it. And this fella was walking over to me when it was over. I don't know who he was. He had a big bushy beard, heavy duty dude, and a little intimidating looking actually. And he comes wandering over toward me, and he said, John, I said, yes sir. He said, you don't want to do that. I'm sorry, I don't understand. He said, you don't want to be calling that heads right and left through and lead to right. And I was lucky. I didn't, at that point in time, I didn't have the big head type thing like when you're talking about who is this guy. I actually stopped and I thought about it and I said, oh, that's awful. He said, yeah, but you've called it twice in that tip. I said, oh, thank you so very much. I really appreciate it, and I'll pay a lot more attention. And I did from that point on. It happened to be John Sobalski of all people. That being said, I had learned my lesson. So please keep body flow, especially close to your heart, and your music selection even more so. When we talk about, I always say this in the sneak peek panel. You spend, how much time do you spend selecting, your pattern music, which is going to be, 6 minutes, 7 minute, 8 minute tip, whatever pattern. Don't you think you should spend just as much time selecting your singing calls rather than just putting them on? Selecting the ones that really speak to you and that type of thing. They're only 4 minutes, right? But they should deserve more attention in how you select them. And with that, I'll hand over to Jerry Junck.
Give a nice hand to John. For those of you that didn't know John Sobolski, I could see that'd be a rather imposing figure. This is something dear to my heart to talk about smooth dancing and body flow, and I kind of threw this together. John touched on the music, and music is so vitally important. Mike, you want to run that thing? Just make sure it's set. Music is vitally important. All of my stuff is set to 126 beats of music, but your music has to talk to you, and for different parts of your evening. And this thing is brand new. Elmer just cut this. But what it does, it talks to you, and you can just call smooth flow with this, like to open a dance with. Bow to the partner, corner to the circle of the left, go around, you do the circle of the left. And you get people's feet to move, and that's the idea. When you're starting a dance, you want to develop trust. And so you want music that just lets you move along, and you can just call to it. And I honestly believe that it's not what we call, but how we call it, how we present it. Presentation to me is so important to dancer's success. And I would use something like that, say, to start a dance with. And then John talked about your workshop tip. Maybe you go with something like this. That's just a steady old hoedown, but doesn't get in your way. Music sets the tone for whatever you're going to do as far as choreography is included. You need to think about your music for what part of the dance it is. And also, John, we talked about music, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but when we're talking about smooth dancing, it's moving from one call to the next with a smooth flowing action and having the proper hand available at a time. I don't know how many of you think about this, but with the exception of star through for the gals, which is a left, and a left down a man, almost every call we call starts with the right hand, followed by a left hand. Almost all of them. There are probably some exceptions, but think about that. And so when you call a call, if you're going to use the right hand, then you need to be thinking about what to do with that left hand a long time before you get there. Because that's what makes flow work. It's hand availability. And how do we do that? And if you're going to do something that's a little more difficult, how are you going to help them? For instance, I do some cast-offs for motion waves, and you can make that smooth. People think, well, you can't do it, but you can. Head square through and you get to 4, to count to 4, get around the ring, and when you get done, touch a quarter, make a new wave, centers trade, swing through, cast right 3/4 till the girls touch, the girls trade, swing through, and the boy run around a girl. The helper words. And notice I set it up so the girls, when you cast, the girls touch, so I can talk to people. Cast 3/4 till the girls touch. If you had a boy and a girl touch, you can't talk to them as well. Now you can do that later on in your tip, but to set it up, you want to set it up. If you want to use the boys as a center, you do that swing through, and then maybe a scoot back, centers trade, swing through, cast off 3/4 till the boys touch, and the boys trade. But you have to know that in your head. You have to know ahead of time what you're going to do and who you're going to talk to, and to be prepared for that next call. Boys trade. It's about momentum, about smooth body flow, about hand usage.
May I interject right there? And one other element that comes into that is our word metering. When you have some calls that need to be delivered together, you know, it is not double pass through track 2. It's double pass through track 2.
Exactly.
It's pass through trade by. You know, and those kinds of metering, tying your reading of your words, you know, to the music makes a major difference.
Any other question?
Silicon Valley, I'm going to address your comment about the double pass-through because I'm hearing impaired and so are a lot of dancers these days. What you're talking about is absolutely correct by the double pass-through track too, if it weren't for the fact that the vast majority of dancers these days do the triple clap. And if you try calling a call during the triple clap, it's a lot harder for the dancers to hear it, and I absolutely hate the callers who do that.
I actually hate dancers who do the triple clap. So
This is off the subject, but on the subject, because what he's talking about, a lot of people are doing this woo-woo, things like that. We have to understand the age group of the people we have. Now, you're hearing me impaired, but a lot of people have hearing aids. And these load-the-boat horns and things like that really bother people that have hearing aids. And we need to think of that, about that, and be cognizant of it. When you're teaching your classes, it's something you need to bring up, not because you need to tell the class that, but you need to let your angels know. But you can't tell the angels unless you tell the class. You get what I mean? Yeah. You get to everybody without saying, "You idiot, don't do that again." That's what I mean. It's a good point.
Load the boat and shut up.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're a Wade driver. You can do that and I can't. The whole point of this is preparation. I believe in modules. I don't think, I'm not a big believer in site resolution. Now, I call by site, don't get me wrong, I resolve by site. But everything I do is a module with a plan. Like that cast 3/4, touch a quarter, centers, trade. Now I got a boy, boy, girl, girl. Swing through, now I got a girl, boy, or boy, girl, boy, girl. Cast 3/4 till the girl's touched. Girls trade, swing through. I know exactly what I have. I know if I run the boys, bend the line right and left through, I'm a square through 3 from an element. I know all of that. That's planned choreography. And everything I do is that way. Also, you have to have, you ever gone to a dance and you wind up with your right leg hurting? The reason is, all you went is right. So you need to have some dancing that takes you other place. Swing through, boys run, couples circulate, chain down the line, and you change that flow. Chain down the line, ladies lead Dixie style, change that flow. Boys trade, left swing through, girls run, couples circulate. Changing the flow so that it feels like dancing. Now, that doesn't mean that you go couples circulate, chain down the line. Ladies lead Dixie style. You know when you do that chain down the line, if you're going to do a ladies lead Dixie style, or if you're going to do a star through. You know that before you start. Okay, John?
only this, that you can make up a whole list of helper words. Like you said, what was one word you just used? Girls touch, right?
Girls touch, girls trade.
I use when you meet. Boys, when you meet, start a left swing through, or whatever it happens to be I'm calling. But it's really critical to note what he said and how he set it up, because the cast all 3/4 that he wanted, what was really critical to normalize the most normal situation he would have would be a standard wave, boys at the end, girls in the middle. So that touch a quarter was vital that he put in there to be able to change things. And he mentioned in your wave, he actually said that while you were calling, letting them know that's where they are. So you're giving dancers a reassurance at that point of where they are, and you're also making sure of where they are for your sake as well. And helper words are vital.
It really is. And what it does, it changes the dancer focus when you say in your wave. Same thing, how many have called touch, square through 4, hit square through 4, touch a quarter, split circulate, and watch the dancers go down. I don't do that, and I'm overcautious. Don't get me wrong. I lean to the side of being overcautious. But if I'm going to do that the first time in the dance, I'll say scoot back, then split circulate. Because by doing that scoot back, I change their focus from a wave to a box. Next time I can say touch a quarter and split circulate because it's in their mind.
Anytime we ask the dancers to reevaluate whether they're working in a wave or a box, it raises the degree of difficulty exponentially. They're not used to that. They're not used to thinking that way. You call couples circulate, they're thinking about the line they're in. They're not thinking about the fact there's also a box and a square at that point in time. And that's, you need to be really cautious about doing that. We need to do that. It's important to do, but you need to be aware. You can warn the dancers. This will keep them from breaking down, because change that relocation situation that goes on, that reevaluation really makes a difference in the degree of difficulty.
The one thing that I want to emphasize too, just getting back to helper words, is please don't let your helper words get in the way of your timing. Because being able to deliver the call, and you're still got those helper words that you're hanging on to, and they're standing there waiting for the next call. You don't let those helper words get in the way. So sometimes it's the choice of helper words and the way you say them to allow them to execute the next call without stopping.
Does that make sense? Like the touch a quarter, scoot back, then split circulate. And I realize I'm overcautious, but as a professional caller, as a full-time caller, I need to get hired back. I really do, and I don't say that to be a joke. I want to be hired back, and if they have success all evening, I guarantee you I'll be hired back. And that's your focus, and the focus isn't on whether you want the dancers to be able to dance to you and to feel like they can. And when they do that, they will have a good dance experience, and you can tell whether it's a good dance or not. See how many squares are on the floor when the dance is over. That tells you all you need to know.
By the way, you guys are making me feel really guilty, you know. You're all standing up, delivering, and walking around. I can't do that.
John just had back surgery, so sit down, John. He also needs to go to the bathroom, which I probably shouldn't have on the tape, but he's going to wait till we're done.
Well, it's right on half of that.
I think it's amazing that you're...
Test. I think it's amazing that John's here after just having back surgery. John, thank you. We're very pleased.
Again, body flow is so important, and hand usage, and what I just talked about. Being aware of what you're looking for, being aware of where you're going to go with this activity. Over rotation, there's a singing call figure that's on a lot of singing call records where they recycle and swing the girl. I just hate that call, because if you think about it, that lady's just turned 360, and she's going to turn another 360 when you swing her, and another 360 when you twirl her. Think about it. Now, you can get away from that very simply. Instead of saying recycle, boys, cross fold, swing. Being aware of what you're doing.
A perfect example that we don't think about. Use the call, spin, chain, and exchange the gears for those that are calling plus. I use that as a key example here. And what's the last thing that happens for the centers? Is a cast off 3/4, right? When you meet, right?
No, spin chain the gears.
Spin chain the gears. All right, the last thing that happens is to cast 3/4 for the centers.
Okay.
And invariably, the next call is all right, circulate. Now you've taken that one dancer who did the 3/4 turn, and you're asking them to turn 2 more quarters. That's a 5/4 turn. And I watch callers use that and other things on top of it. Then you just grind that dancer, a couple of dancers down into the floor. Now with body flow, usually you're okay. Occasionally you may have a situation where 2 people can't feel as good about it as the rest, but otherwise it should be for everybody.
Yeah, as a man, when you're calling, you need to think about what's the lady doing, because the lady, like in my example, she turned 360 degrees twice or 3 times.
And sometimes some will say, well, it's just 2 of the dancers, 2 of the 8 dancers, but boy, still, those 2 dancers are still there to dance too. So they're still feeling it too.
And what if the lady has a little trouble with vertigo and stuff like that? And you need to be cognizant of those things. That's part of
Do they
smooth.
want to deduct 25% of their fee? There's only 2 people.
Wade Driver for the tape just said they should deduct 25% of the fee, and my reply to you is, who asked you? Yeah. So we're talking about, it isn't what you call, it's how you call it. And it's called preparation. If you're going to do something in a tip, you want to prepare for it. If you want to do the cast 3/4, then you prepare for it. Think about what you're doing. Wade and I were talking about a call a little while ago, and it's in advance, so I won't go there. But the whole point was the setup. Maybe I should wait. Should I say? I don't know how many are using Motivate, just so you know what it is. It's a call on the advanced list. And I was going to play with Enroll Motivate. And all you do is you replace the first all eight circulate with Enroll circulate. The point is, you can't call that from a boy, girl, boy wave, because it won't do it. You have to set it up so you have a boy, girl wave, because when you do the Enroll circulate, they're normal and they finish like a Motivate. It isn't what you call, it's how you call it.
If you don't know what Enroll circulate means for that setup he was talking about, the end dancer looking in circulates straight across the square, and the other people in the wave roll down, flip over one spot in his direction.
And you have a normal wave.
And that gives you the normal wave. You need to know that to understand the example.
But the point is, for smooth dancing, you have to set that up, because if you call it any other way, they can't do it. They just, I don't care how good they are. They're going to struggle with that. So you think about it ahead of time. How am I going to accomplish this? And get it in your mind as to what you do to set up. I replaced Burl Main down here in Mesa when Burl passed away, and Kerry was kind enough to give me his notes, which was just, wow. you think. And what amazed me, I wasn't around Burl very much. I did a couple of tips with him, and I was surprised to have been asked to do this. But when I got to looking at the notes, I was amazed at how similar we thought, because Burl set stuff up just like what I'm talking about. And it just kind of reinforced my philosophy about calling it. It was a very interesting thing to go through those notes. It really was.
Guys, this stuff that you're getting right now is so valuable, especially if you've only been calling a few years and haven't heard some of these things. I went to a number of caller schools, 100 years ago when I started, and this stuff was never touched on. This kind of stuff never came up back then. And it's so valuable to make you a successful caller. Please take this stuff to heart.
Yeah, it's really important. So when you create a module, think about what Flippo had a famous saying, and there's a lot of Flippoisms around. Most of them you can't repeat in public. However, Flippo said, when you call DVD, two boys together, two girls together, he said you can't leave people half sashayed or two girls together, or two boys together, more than 3 calls, because you won't have to fix it, they will. And he's right. He's right. So when you think about doing anything, think about, how do I set this up so that it's simple enough that everybody can get it? But when I finish it, are we normal? So they're comfortable. And that's the important thing. They're comfortable. It isn't about us, it's about them. And to make them comfortable, and it's how you set it up. Back there, the gentleman sitting back there, he took down a whole bunch of stuff I did because of that very thing. But it's something you think about consciously, and even if you're going to do a new workshop call, the first thing I look at is what does the call do? But then I look at how do I need to make that call flow? How do I need to set it up? Or do I need a preparatory tip, the tip before, to work on some things that will set that call up? That's how you make smooth body flow. Thinking ahead, thinking about what am I going to do? And what hands are going to be available? What can you do after the call? You're going to do the same thing, or can you do something else? Can you vary it without making it difficult? I always like to think you want to call different without being difficult. That's kind of my philosophy. Mike?
I agree with Jerry. Takes a minute. I agree with Jerry about that. He's talking not only about setting the dancers up with the type so it's flowing, but setting them up so that they succeed. And when you call a sequence and you look down and you realize that floor is just not getting it, they're breaking down, they're having a problem. Instead of looking down at that floor and thinking these guys aren't very good dancers or who taught them to dance or whatever, start looking at yourself and go, how could I have called that? just a little bit differently? How could I have set it up a little bit differently so those dancers could succeed? And that analysis coming back to yourself will make you really stop and rethink some of the ways that you might call and present certain things when you call. It really helps to just turn it around and just say for a minute, how can I have made that more successful?
Mike, can I jump in there?
Yes.
Is that okay, Jim?
Please.
What I've seen happen, we get this unintended consequences occur often in the world, but when we set up and develop the standard applications document, which is a wonderful document for new callers, the purpose of that document was to show newer callers how they can be more successful in the calls that they put together and how they present them. And that's a wonderful tool. But we're now seeing almost everybody I see across the country are teaching only to that point, the standard applications point. And if you veer off of that, you're going to start losing dancers. And I don't care where you are. So if you're going to change, you really need to look at how you're going to make them more successful. And you may find to your surprise that they still have trouble because they've gotten it burned in one way. And I think it's so critical in our teaching. I don't want you to try to teach them APD if there is such a thing, okay? Everything is by definition. I prefer the term extended application after the standard application. And if you're going to change from that standard application, you need to make sure you know how to get them there, whether it means walking them or at least changing some element of it. I had a bad experience on the West Coast. I went into a room, I thought it was going to be a strong floor, 18 squares, and I wanted to call spin chain and exchange the gears. And I danced them right to a 0 box, and I stepped to a wave, center straight, spin chain, exchange the gears. And was no problem, the girls were out on the end now after the swing half. Next time I did it, I did a swing through, and then spin chain and exchange the gears. Put the boys out on the end. I dropped 18 squares. 18 squares down. I said, well, surely I must have, I said something wrong. They surely couldn't have missed that. So I called it again, and I did a lot better. I only dropped 16 squares. We did not call that again the rest of the night, other than one way. And it wasn't a dance situation where I could do a workshop. It was on the coast. My understanding out there is that a dance is a dance is a dance, not a workshop. So I left it alone, but I had to look back at myself in that circumstance. But I do think there's too many callers that are not showing them it is doable more than one way. You know, even if it's only just half sachet from what they're used to think, we use that term, but we're used to think being on the other side, because that's vital. You're trying to make these dancers be more successful and feel more competent when you're teaching them. So show them more than one way, but don't try to show them everything.
Not only that, what he was talking about setting them up, big thing is, can you get them out quick? Can you get them normal? Can you get them normal? I learned something from Flippo. I learned a lot of things from Flippo.
You can't talk about it.
Most of them I can't talk about. I watched him at Kirkwood Lodge one time called Boy, Boy, Girl, Girl, Relay the Deuce, and it was just slick. I mean, he just, boy, move up, hook onto a boy, girl, hook onto a girl. Man, that's slick. So I came back here to Mesa, and I thought I'd do this at my workshop. And I called it, and I did it about 3 times. I think, maybe I just move on to something else. So I thought about it all week, and then it hit me. It wasn't what he called, it's how he called it. I had a girl, girl, boy, boy, wave. He had a boy, boy, girl, girl, wave. Boys are used to coming off of that wave and walking all the way down. The girls aren't. The next time I called it, I didn't even have to walk it. I said, boy, hook onto a boy, girl, hook onto a boy, or girl, boom.
That's smart.
Wasn't what he called, it's how he called it. How he called it. And it's a good lesson to learn. It's kind of like what Wade and I were talking about today about that Enroll Motivate. It's little things that make the difference. It's not the big things, it's little things. But keep in mind, all this time you've got this music going, and you're going to do this to that music. So that has to be in your mind what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and what music you want to use. Music that talks to you and talks to them without getting in the way, and especially on your hoedowns, so that you can 10, 5 to the partner, corner 2, circle to the left, and get your voice with that, and then your feet go with that. Allemande left with the old left hand, 100 with the right, and a right to left grand, whatever you want to do. Heads promenade halfway around the ring you go, lead to the right and a right to left through, and a turn that girl butt, veer to the left, couple circulate, chain down the line, whatever you do, but you have to know in your mind what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And if you're going to vary it, you don't want to do head square through four hands all night. And I fall into that habit down here in Mesa because I'm teaching all the time. And so I have to kind of break myself of that habit when I get back out on the road. But little things make the difference. And hand availability. On a Dixie style, how many people have trouble, you call a Dixie style and see all the boys trying to go with the right hand? Well, sometimes, and I just did a dance with Mike. We did a new caller dance in LA, and we had more fun. I don't know if they had as much fun as we did, but but it was really fun. And they hiccuped a little bit on this Dixie style. So at a dance like that, you can get away with this. And I just had the head square through 4, touch a quarter, scoot back. Boys fold behind the girl. And I said, you know, everything we do in dancing starts a right hand followed by a left hand. Girls shake right hands. What hand's available to you? The boy is now standing right behind her. The ladies pull by with the right, left touch a quarter, end of call. Boys, you're standing behind the girl. So I said, then you call a little bit, do that a few times, and then I say, now, I get them in the lines, right and left through, and I said, boys, are you standing behind the girls? Say no. And they all say no, and I said, that's a good answer. So when you hear ladies lead Dixie style, you don't stand there. You slide behind the girl. It's called counter dancing. But slide behind the girl, and your left hand will work every time. And Mike watched me do it, and he did it as well. And before we did, what, 2 sequences. I'd say right and left through, boys slide behind her, ladies lead Dixie style. Doesn't get in the way at all. We never had anybody break down.
And the other way we added, I just added a little dilly to the end of that, we'll say, boys, high five. So when those guys come into the middle, I want them to high five right there in the middle. And it gets the guys, boom, that right hand is together, you know. And if you have a high five, no matter what happens with that left hand, that first time they high five, they're going to look for that when they dig.
Helper words, yeah, helper words. And I had not thought of that, but it was a very good technique because he said high five, and they did that. And it's a real good way.
The rest of the way through.
Again, it's not what we call.
Learn it from me, Mike.
It's how we call it.
Yeah, that was from you, Rod, wasn't it? It was from Rod Shupin in the back. Thank you, Rod, very much. Yeah.
Now, I don't know, Mike maybe has some more to add to this, but do we make sense? Are there questions from you? The other thing that I notice people doing is when the couples get back home, how many guys stand around? Well, when I got people home, I'll say heads, and I'm ready to go, and everybody said, boy, you call fast. No, I just don't stop. I don't stop. It's continuous flow. We have gotten so intrigued with choreography, we forgot that it's a dance. And I don't know how to get that through to everybody, but that dance part of it is the preparation part. It's the thought that you made before you got to the dance, that this is how you work it. If you want to call it a little differently, the cast off 3/4 from waves, set it up so that it dances. And understand then that you're going to be across the street when you get done.
John?
Right from the beginning, when we start teaching our dancers as new dancers, of course we have to stop more often. They need that extra time to orient and sense. And we do that, but we add in, there's the difference between the definition and a cue. And we teach them the definition, and we give them a cue, which is a shortened version of the call. The right and left through, right pull by, stick out the left, and a courtesy turn type thing is one that I use as a cue at that point. Eventually, of course, I take the cue away. But there's something else we have to learn to take away. We need to learn to take away the stop. We need to learn to teach the dancers how to dance what's called stacked calls. Right? And you can only stack them so far ahead of them. You don't want to confuse them. You don't want to ask them to remember 4 calls, anything like that. But eventually that crutch that we've given them, that extra time, that stopping time, we need to begin to take it away a little at a time, to where now all of a sudden they can do the right and left through and the ladies chain right together, you know, into the flutter wheel, into the whatever. But you begin to do that stacking because you're going to need it later. But we get into later and somehow we were fine up to this point, and then somehow we start to keep the crutch in place. Now, there are some callers that stop after every call because they're not sure what to call next. That's not sight calling, that's human checkers, you know, which is not a good thing, right? But I think it's really, really important. And the business about Jerry talking about being fast versus, you know, not stopping. That's a perfect example. And I'll, you know, I won't name names, but, you know, I'm going behind a caller who's notoriously known for using really fast music, which I may have mentioned before, but doesn't call the music, right? So the dancers are dancing to him and he stops. He gives them a lot of stops. I come in, I'm much slower, much slower tempo, but I don't stop. I'm consistent. And I'm considered the fast one. He's too fast, you know, for me. The dancers need to learn how to do that, because if it's not continuous movement, it's not dance anymore.
Right. And that doesn't mean this continuous movement thing doesn't mean that there's not time for something like an asymmetric sequence or something that might be a little bit different for the dancer to give just a little change in pace so that they're not just walking to the beat all night long.
For them to breathe.
Yeah, it's a little bit of breathe time. So that doesn't mean that you completely eliminate that. You sprinkle that stuff in for variety and variation. But when they're dancing, let them dance. And as John said, when you're taking away those helper words, you're giving them the music. You're letting them dance to the music. Make the music so much a part of what you do. And when you back off those helper words and you're just giving them the commands and helping them flow through, use a piece of music that just lets them dance.
Two calls that come to mind that you need to think about to handle the person not active. Dixie style 208 puts the boys in the center, and a lot of times I do boys cross run, ladies slide together, ladies trade. I do that because the girls need some flow, and they've just used the right hand. They need a left hand. They need that left hand. The other one that just kills me, and I see this all the time, head square through 4, touch a quarter, follow your neighbor and spread, swing through. Oh, I hate that. Now, I know what the guys are thinking about, because if they touch a quarter, follow your neighbor and spread, they have a 0 box. But the girls' hands are begging to trade in the middle, so ladies trade. So what's your hurry to get to the box? Swing through, boys, run, bend the line, pass the ocean, you got a box. And everybody got to dance. But those little things, if that girl just come to the center, that hand is begging to be used. Alternate the hands. Make sense?
Makes sense. The dancers will do it. The dancers commonly will do this stuff, but the dancers will make up for us a lot, and sometimes we just don't need to do that. So, any comments? Comments from anybody? Things that maybe are pet peeves or things that get to you or whatever. Wade?
Here comes Wade Driver.
I have Wade Driver, Spring Takes. I have one complaint. When Brule died, he left you his notes. He left me a case of candy that was so bad even the dancers would pay it for it.
I will share those with you, Wade.
You still have that case?
I do have I didn't get any candy, but I've been giving shoemakes candy to everybody for years.
And he left Mesa how long ago?
I don't know, he's still complaining about it.
Very good. Anybody else comments?
Yes, Lisa, please.
Lisa Lincoln, Santa Fe, New Mexico. I've wondered, using patter with words, because you talked about Super Trooper, how much of that can you do?
I'll take it since I brought it up. I think there's a limited amount that fits into a given evening. The idea here is that be careful in the music you select. Generally, if you're a male caller, you want to use something that has mostly female voices in it, that higher range, or a male like Ricky Skaggs, some of his stuff, his bluegrass stuff, dances really well. What is it, Highway 40 Blues, I think that is. That one works quite well. But the idea is just differentiation for the dancer. They've got to understand who the caller is and who the background words or noise is coming from. And you want that to be kept at a minimum, so it's going to be very cautious there. If it's a female caller, obviously, then what you want is, something lower that you're going to be able to cut through with your higher pitched voice going through it. So that's the first part of how you choose for that, so the dancers don't get confused. There's a call that's now been converted to a square dance version called Two Times, but it was by Leanne, that was the name of the artist, and of course hers, their words are in there, and the words are 2 times, and you really don't want them to hear them square through 2 times. So keep in mind, that type of thing can actually happen, but the square dance version is quite good, and it works. Just a little boop boop in the back. There you go. This dances really beautifully, and it is a pop piece. And again, no words. Now let's use another example that I'm hoping you have over there, Jerry. On the call, Tennessee Waltz has been popular recently, and the way we first got onto it was a German artist lady who I've seen the video of her actually. She is a packaged product. Let me tell you, top to bottom. I mean, clothes, hair, style, everything. And she's out strutting her stuff in this video through a beer garden. And she's singing Tennessee Waltz. But it's an up version of Tennessee Waltz with her voice in it and in German, no less, right? Which, of course, that somewhat helps our dancers, but it might confuse the Germans trying to use us versus them versus the song. But then it came out on another version, another label, JRR, I believe is the name of the label, and they have it and without voices, and they're both good. But the one that they did with the original with the voice in it, the difference is it has a drive to it. You can really drive and push. The other one's more of a relaxer, but both cases for pattern. And it's interesting how you choose them when you use them. I have both. I tend to use the square dance version more often, but I have a friend of mine, good caller, he tends to do the opposite. He uses the driver more often. I pick and choose for the environment that I'm in, what I'm trying to do. But it's cautious. Right there is the main key in terms of how your voice will compare to the voices on the piece of music you're selecting. I probably wouldn't do more than 2 a night. I would think at the most for my dancers. I think that's generally the case. I don't know about the other 2 fellows. Wait.
Yeah, and I totally agree with John. You have to be really judicious in selecting, and, which is a really hot button mine, learn the song. Play that thing. For example, I used to think with Bee Gees, which is the same thing. He's singing the key is Z sharp in someplace. But, well, nobody has voice, but he did a song called Dancing, all right? It's a little raucous, but you need to learn where he's going to say dancing. So you can do your thing and do a right and left grand, and they'll be dancing, and let them sing to them. So if you're going to use a song with vocals, learn it, cold, know who's going to say, or the last, whatever that thing was. With,
2 times.
Yeah, no, that crazy one, whatever it is, it has that.
Last night. Last night.
That thing gets raucous. I work with those guys, but before he died, he gets really weird in there. But you can use it if you know where the passages are.
There's a number of versions of Last Night also, quite a few different versions of that out there. And I have one that doesn't have the voices in it, and it's a karaoke piece, and it works really, really well. But you're right, you can get carried away with it. The dancers love it.
But if you know where that is, and you can set it up and do it such a way, it really gets their attention.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're in Louisiana where they're crazy to begin with.
Silicon Valley, I will again speak as a hearing impaired person, and I never like music with vocals in it.
Yeah, and he has a good point there.
He does.
And I do use a lot of pop music. For example, Uptown Funk is one that a lot of my dancers will always congratulate me for. But what I do is I get the karaoke version. Be careful with karaoke. A lot of them have backing vocals. Sometimes what you want to do is look for the instrumental version of the piece, and that will get you the one without any vocals.
I agree. Okay. Other questions? Yes, there's a young lady back there.
You keep talking about like karaoke and different things. How does that affect our BMI ASCAP situation?
If you buy the record, if you buy the song, it doesn't affect you at all. Yeah. You've paid for the music, doesn't matter where it came from, as long as you have a record that you indeed paid for the music.
Yeah.
President?
Yes, that leads me into that. But I don't want to really do a commercial. Just the bottom line about our music is make sure you're managing it and acquiring it and managing it in the right way. And everybody, member of CALLERLAB, should belong to the Guild of Pride by stating the fact that you manage and you music to your peers, that you manage and that you handle your music in an ethical manner. And that's why the Guild of Pride is there. It's just so we can all tell each other that we're standing on both of our feet and we're managing our music in a legal and an ethical manner.
Any other questions?
There's one other point that I wanted to make, and it's about that, giving that dancer that one beat of music in the way you call. It can't always happen, but when you can do it, pick me out a singing call or something. It can't always happen, but when you can do it, if you can deliver the command before the one beat and give that dancer the one beat, you will enhance their dancing experience. And they won't know why, but a lot of them won't know why. It just feels better and smoother. But you'll know why, and those dancers will end up enjoying the dance. Fold the knees, chain across. You turn and chain them back. Circle left now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Allemande left your harmony, weave the rig. 1, 2, 3. Can't make old friends. Can't make old friends. It was you and me since way back when. You can't make old friends. Hit square through, it's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I noticed he didn't wait for it. He said it right away.
Swing through and then, boy trade. Boy run right, bend the line, up to the middle and back. And a while it through, and turn the girl and then. Giving them that first beat when you start out, we'll finish the line. Everybody sing along. Nice piece, Wade. Well, it was you and me since way back when, but you can't make old friends. It's probably halfway.
And again, notice there was no wait.
6, down the middle of the square through. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and around left through. Veer left and Ferris wheel. We use that figure a lot because it times out really well and it gives them the one beat. But the key is on that. When you start your figure, if you can do it, that's why we say circle left and then they give them the one beat. That's why we say side space, grand square, boom, you give them that one beat there.
2 quick things, Mike. One is that you notice in there he did the Allemande left and weave. That's your stacking right there, so that he didn't have to get in the way of it. And didn't have to get in the way of the music and get in the way of taking that first beat. Now, Mike, would you demonstrate for us how to do it with a patter piece?
Because you get to the point sometimes on a patter, but you got to use a well-phrased patter piece
Yes,
too.
absolutely.
That's always good. But the key is giving them that one beat.
A way to practice that, by the way, is some of the contra type music that helps you.
A simple thing like this. Yeah, start again. Four to these chain, 2, 3, 4, 5. You chain a lady back, 2, 3, 4. A circle out, you go around the 1, 2, 3, 4. Do it on the left and go
Watch
out
the feet.
Do it on the left, grand, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2. It's the musical phrase, and you're actually delivering the call on the 5, 6, 7, and 8, somewhere in there to give them that one beat. It can't always happen, but when you can do that, it really makes a big difference.
But notice that music made you pick your feet up.
Yep.
Music is really important. I want you to thank Mike for hosting this thing.
Nice hand for Mr. Jerry Junck, John Marshall.
On behalf of all of us who've been CALLERLAB members for a long time, we appreciate you coming to the convention, and we hope that you get something out of it that's useful and will help your calling in your clubs. We thank you for your support. Thanks,
Yes.
guys.
Thank you.
The dump drive is not ready, they're gonna mail it out from
Jerry? Yeah, I think we have Jerry, because he was on his iPod. Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. That's great.
Sorry. Wow.
But I was just wondering how you understand how to call it, depending on the song.
Oh, I don't think so. I was with fiction.
You don't stop and do this way, probably, you just realize the whole.
He's the one who's working on revamping training, sort of caller training. Training program. So I kind of want to just check briefly about it, see where they are.
For a while, this is the end of this. We had a really good session.
I need to call my wife.
I'm just telling you that. Yes, go ahead, tell
Erin was in there and she had a lot of this. And the two moderators are both callers. So they got both sides of it.
I still have a lot of
But it was nice to hear other issues other people had. And it wasn't just the caller and keyboards, other problems like equipment, stage setups.
Plus, she's being aware, she's very popular.
Those people want to see what's on the tape. It goes out to other people. Hopefully it makes a difference. Somebody
I would be, to the court, I was thinking, no, where's that thing I gave you? Here's what I had. I know my writing is really tacky, and I apologize. Because I can't.
Your
Brilliant.
I fixed all those certifications.
Teacher certification. We are walk in the square, walk on in the square, so far, so, you know, when you walk in the square before, it's like crap, I'm sorry. All the way in the right of the so, I'm doing the wrong song, what is it? Wait on, not. Here, left is circulate, change down the line. It will be spread, just a quarter round, the ring and go. Spring and winter, the accommodate. There's no problem with singing, but you gotta be clear. And you don't put the emotion right there. Until you get to number 6. Number 6.